Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's live webinar. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from 𝗕𝗂𝘁 Marketing Agency, Time Research and Innovation, and Neurodivergent Business Consortium. And you know that this is our regular live to contribute to the channel, as well as to the community that we work in. And we intend to contribute knowledge if related to software development, marketing, business development, and so on. So creating a knowledgeable culture, as well as supporting your business with knowledge and technology is our priority. So today, we have a very special guest, and I will introduce him in a minute. We're going to be talk about business development with Kalvin Morris and Dr. Shah Siddiqui. You know that I'm doing in business since 2000. And before that, I started my business career when I was in school. I had lots of ups and downs, as well as learning from engaging with businesses and so on. And I think this space, if you do not have a specific knowledge and you wanted to try and then learn from your mistake, is a little bit different than the usual settings in 20 years ago. So now people usually wanted to get the results very quick. And for that reason, they hire a person like me or Kalvin. So I will introduce Kalvin to the, just give me a second now. So here we go, Kalvin Morris. And he is the founder of Obvious to Success. And I know him for a long time now. He used to live in Portsmouth, but he's living in Dubai now and doing his business over there. So Kalvin, thank you very much for joining today's live webinar.
No worries, it's great to be here.
Yeah. So if you could introduce yourself a little bit further down to the audience, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, so as you can see, it's a bit darker here in Dubai. We're only 3 hours ahead of the UK. That will change again at the end of October. But yeah, it's nighttime here. So a little bit about myself. So I've been a business owner for 23 years. I started a recruitment business in the care sector with my mum that we still own and run today. That's a UK-based company. And for over the period of the 23 years, I've started in total 12 companies. And a lot of the other businesses that I started were born out of passion and interest. So I call them passion businesses. So I used to be into music when I was younger. I used to DJ and travel around a bit, ran events and music festivals. So that's what I call passion businesses. When COVID happened, I launched a videography and live streaming company because suddenly things like, being able to talk in the way that we are now and Zoom and everything became the norm. And we started streaming sporting events and business events as well. I also ran a HGV driver training center and various other businesses. And when we'd had businesses for 17 years, I started getting some coaching at a very, very high level. And I was in 2 programs in and around London and Essex. And the people who were running those businesses were doing hundreds of millions of turnover in their businesses. And I learned a lot in a very short period of time. Over 5 years in the grand scheme of the length of your life is not a very long period of time. And as I got into that and I started to learn more about social media and modern marketing, if you want to call it that, I started to really realize my passion in all of these businesses that I'd started was more around the struggle to get them off the ground and get them launched. And although it might sound a bit bizarre, once they were launched and they were trading and they were making a bit of money, they weren't as interesting to me. And I wouldn't say that I lost the interest, but I kind of grew and thought, okay, I don't want to be in the music world or the DJ world when I was younger. And then the live streaming business was great, but I couldn't scale it because I had to be the man on the ground. I couldn't find somebody that managed the team with all the tech. We were talking about tech just before we come live. The HGV driver training business was limited by the portal that the government put out, because you can only get a certain amount of tests each week, so you're restrained. So a lot of these businesses I found I couldn't scale them. And then about 3 years into having the coaching, we were in a group of more than 100 people being coached at the same time. And I started to coach my peers and help them on their business. I didn't really consider that I was coaching them or helping them. They throw a problem at me. We'd all meet every month, what's going on. And when you're in that environment where you're all learning, everybody is dealing with their problems. So it's kind of a safe environment to say, this is happening or that's happening in my business. And I'd say, well, if you try this, because I've experienced this, then you can get this outcome, let's say. And people started saying to me, you really need to start doing this as a business. You need to start helping people as a business. And that's kind of where Obsessed to Success was born. I very nearly started the business with somebody else who was going to move to Dubai, and we were going to launch it as a business retreat to start with. And then for his own personal reasons, he decided he wasn't going to do that. There was no issue there from my side. And then it very quickly grew into helping businesses grow, look at the sales and the growth strategies required in a business. And as I explain it to people, it's a framework for any business, the core sections of the business, but of course, every single business is individual as well. And I don't really like to call myself a coach or a mentor, because there's a million coaches. And when somebody says, I'm a coach, it's kind of a buzzword to switch somebody off. Going, oh, it's another coach. So I kind of like to explain myself as a growth strategy specialist. So I come into somebody's business, I treat it as if it's my own. I look at every aspect of the business which can be improved, and with their agreement, we focus on those areas, and then we move forward very quickly. Typically, somebody would come to me normally when there's a problem. So I said to somebody this week, if nobody approaches somebody to help if the business is great. If the business is great, then they're just working on it, in it. It's when things start to go wrong, or they start to try and grow, and maybe they can't grow to the next stage, or maybe they've got some employees that aren't performing how they expected them to. And that can sometimes be down to training. So it's any aspect really of business growth and strategy, restructure, recruitment, using all of my knowledge that I'm doing now. So yeah, that's a bit of a brief overview. There's obviously a much longer story in there, but that's a little bit of a brief overview of me.
We will discuss about it and more in detail. So thank you, Kalvin, sorry. So we're going to discuss more in detail of business development, as well as you said, growth specialist, strategist. A lot of other words we know nowadays, because when I was I came to the UK in 2004, and before that I was in Bangladesh. So I have seen different culture. So you are in Dubai. I have seen Middle Eastern culture, Asian culture, and now I'm in Europe. So I am seeing European culture. So there are some cultural differences as well when we prioritize our business decisions. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But before I jump into asking you specifically different type of questions, I just wanted to ask to all the audience, if you wanted to ask me any questions or Kevin, please feel free to ask through the comment box. There is a comment section on LinkedIn, and if you are utilizing all other social media, feel free to ask us questions, and we will answer them as one after another. So Kalvin, thank you very much. I appreciate your support today and your contribution to the knowledge that we're going to be investing to the community. You have worked because you're born in the UK, you raised in the UK. Why did you move to move to Dubai now? Because I can see that there is a real shift for people working in the UK move to Dubai. Was the secret sauce, or what the motivation that you are living in Dubai and working globally?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, we've owned the recruitment business 𝗦𝗃𝗀𝐾𝐳 in the UK for 23 years. We've grown it from scratch. We've employed thousands and thousands of people, done tens of millions of pounds of turnover, and I've had an incredible life in the UK. I've had lots of materialistic things that lots of people would never have, nice cars and things like that, beautiful house and home, started my family with my wife and my three lovely daughters there. And our business was really great up to COVID. It was really, really great. So all the way from 2001 to COVID, it had its ups and downs, but it was generally just growing and growing, once it was established. And of course, we all make mistakes in business, but I'm a firm believer now that mistakes don't exist, they're just lessons. Sometimes they're very expensive financially, sometimes they're expensive emotionally, sometimes they're expensive physically. And COVID came along, and initially our business grew, and we were in the healthcare sector, and there was probably 8 or 9 touch points that hit us very hard, very fast. And we went from a business that was doing huge turnover. So we measured our performance in the hours worked by the workers. So we were doing 14,000 hours of work every 4 weeks in the business. And we lost 95% of that work in 4 weeks because of COVID. And we had a manager who's probably one of, if not the best people that we've ever employed in all of my life, who was with us for 8 years. We had to let him go. We had an office team of 20 people. We had to let 18 of them go. And we were literally back to me, my mum, and 1 or 2 other people in the business. And we had 20 drivers, had to let them all go, sold a load of vehicles, and we were just working backwards as fast as we can. Now, when you have a company of a certain size, we had a huge office to accommodate all of these staff. You can't just retract it that fast. So we quickly went into decline. We had to, all of the staff that have been with us years, quite rightly got their redundancy pay, but that falls on the shoulder of the employer. Then the company was losing money for 6 or 7 months. A significant amount of money was being hemorrhaged, which we had to control. We had to take like a delay on tax payments and all kinds of actions that sometimes entrepreneurs do behind closed doors that people don't realize. And we came out of COVID and we kind of survived and got through that period of time. And then we did, from COVID up until last year, we did an incredible amount of money. We actually doubled the size of the business again. And then I can't even remember which order these were. I think Brexit was then after COVID. And all of our workers were foreign workers, so let's say Europeans, who used to be able to walk across the border in the UK, get a job, no questions asked, legally. So they brought in Brexit. So a lot of the very good, hardworking, Eastern Europeans, let's say, decided to disappear. And I put myself in their situation. If I was in a government saying, we don't want you here anymore, because that was kind of how the message was relayed to them, from my opinion. They said, you know what, we're going back to our own country, we'll go somewhere else. So that put a massive strain on recruitment, but initially that played an advantage to us because the care homes couldn't get the staff and they relied on agency. Then the government realised there was a staffing issue in the UK and they opened up a sponsorship. So after Brexit, there's a sponsorship, almost like a point-based system, like what Australia do. And what they did was they bought in over a year and a half, nearly 200,000 new care workers on sponsorship deals. So we're a staffing agency supplying staff when you don't have staff. And now the staffing crisis, temporarily at least, is over. So now there isn't much for business. Now, whilst all of this is happening, the UK government are incrementing at a faster rate than ever the minimum wage. Now, we want to pay our staff as much money as possible, okay? But where does that money come from? And I'll tell you where it comes from. It comes from the employer. So over, let's say, the last 10 years, I think when we started, VAT was 7.5% when we started our business. And it's now 20%. So there's a loophole in care with some of the types of clients that we supply where they have to pay VAT, but they're VAT exempt when they charge. So they lose 20% on their invoice. Everybody that supplies them, they just get hammered with VAT they can't reclaim. And then what the government have done is, as the minimum wage has gone up, we all know that the price of gas, the price of electricity, the price of food has quadrupled in the UK in the last 2 years. And whilst all that's happening and the minimum wage has gone up, then of course the cost of your fuel has gone up, the cost of our wages, so our holiday pay has gone up. The people that we supply, our care homes, and the residents, or the service users as we call them, in the care homes are funded by the government, and the government are slashing the budget on the people going into the care home. So about, I can't remember how long ago, let's say 10 years, we had a meeting with Portsmouth City Council, a lot of local companies. It was the care sector, and they called it the death curve. So when inflation's going like this, and the thing that brings in the money is going like this, when those two things cross over, it's dead. The sector has crumbled, and we all know the NHS is in trouble. So basically what's happened, through no fault of our own, as we've increased minimum wage and overheads and cost, our gross percentage and therefore our net percentage of profits in the business has shrunk. So I think it was, what would it have been, April 22, they put the minimum wage up by 50 something pence, 55 pence an hour. But the real cost to the employer is nearly £2 when they do that. And we lost 50% of profits overnight. So naturally, April, we had to put our prices up, and we used to put it up 10 pence an hour a year. We had to put it up at £2. So then we lost clients, and then we had 7 or 8 major care homes who've been clients for 20 years who just said, we cannot cope with this anymore, and they closed their doors. And those clients, our work went with it. So it wasn't temporary, it was permanent. And then the next minimum wage that happened this year put our business into negative equity. So it was costing us money to run it. So then we had to, the team we'd rebuilt after COVID, we had to lay that whole team off again, sell the office building, turn it into a remote business. And we've now gone from multi-million-pound turnover company to a very small company because of all of those things. Now, as a business owner, you know, how do you react to that? Is you're basically hitting people where it hurts. You're laying people off who have been loyal to you and having to make those decisions. Whilst that's happening, 25% corporation tax now, 40% income tax for higher rate taxpayers, 20% VAT. If I stayed in the UK, I'd be on 65% income tax. Now, hopefully you can start to see and understand the journey and the reasons that I thought, I think there's a better way for me and my family. I remember my daughter, who's now 8, when she was, I think she was 5, she fell off a swing in the park, smacked her head, like knocked herself unconscious. She had a headache. I couldn't bring her around. She was being sick. And I phoned an ambulance at 5 p.m. and it came at 7 a.m. the next day. And they told me that the whole city of Portsmouth and Southampton had 1 ambulance on. Now, that's not the ambulance crew's fault. That's just the crippling effect of everything that's happened to the economy. And I always say to people, if you made me Prime Minister, so my job is to help businesses, right? And just jump in, figure out the problem and help them. If you made me Prime Minister, I don't know what I would do. And why do I want to bring my children up in that environment? And honestly, that's the truth. So, you know, we'd heard about Dubai. We'd been here a bunch of times on holiday. And they've made it very, very easy for people with a little bit of money behind them. You can come here pretty much for 2 weeks, get your visa, set your company up, get your bank account and go home. And you're now a UAE resident. So that's what I did. We went back home. I came back and forward for 2 weeks at a time, 6 times on my own. So I, left the family and put the work in. And then at the beginning of this year, we moved over. And it's not, cocktails and palm trees and that's it, right? You still have to work. And you actually touched on a really interesting point. I've been really grafting in my business, and the multicultural diversity that's here is great, but it's very, very challenging.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin, for sharing your story. I think viewers, they're watching today and they will watch later. They will have some useful insights from your contribution, because I also find it difficult. I was on and off from work, but whenever I worked, I paid taxes, and my taxes is different than usual other taxes. So I paid high tax, and when I was off work, I did not get paid higher amount. I was get paid exactly the same of the other people they are getting. So I don't understand that, because when you working on a certain levels, like, okay, you are earning more than 30 or 40 or 50, you pay taxes, and you have direct debits and all other things set up to the level that you are working.
Yes.
Then if you're off sick, you're not getting back those things on that level, then you become bankrupt, you become a lot of other things. So I have seen many cases like that, because people working and they are paying high tax, but when they are jobless, they're not receiving that. And our system has to change for that reason, because I think if you're contributing more, you receive more. If you're average receiver, you're not contributing anything, isn't it?
Yeah. It's almost that you're being punished for being more successful. Well, it's not almost, that's what's happening. The harder that you work in the UK, the more you pay. And now there's always going to be this argument. And this argument is going to be, if you're a lower rate earner, less than 40,000 a year, with respect to everybody, then you're going to say, well, tax the rich. If you're somebody who's earning more money, you're saying, why am I paying? Because you're not earning as much. The system is so big, and look, nobody's right or wrong, really. The government are making very aggressive steps, and they're trying to claim back as much money from what happened with COVID and everything, but they're punishing the people for their mistakes. But are they right? Right? Are they right? Are they wrong? If they don't do something, what will happen? But they're doing stuff, and now, there's an article that a lot of people have seen about 9.5 to 10,000 millionaires are going to leave in the next 12 months. Don't believe everything on social media, but what I did see the other day was a video about somebody talking about Labour creating an exit tax. So if you want to skip ship from the UK, they're going to say, we're going to tax you before you leave. And it's almost like imprisoning people, trying to force them to stay. But by taxing them when they leave, that's not going to force them to stay. It's going to force them to leave forever. Now, I've employed 4,500 people in my UK company in the past 23 years. I'm not going to employ 4,500 people in my UK company in the next 20 years. And I'm a small fish in the sea, right? Let's say that all of those employers were employing 5,000 people, and there's 9,500 leaving, and they're going to employ their staff elsewhere around the world. That's like, whatever the maths is, hundreds of thousands of new jobs that aren't going to be created in the UK anymore. So by taxing people more and making the people who are creating the jobs leave, you're hitting the economy harder in the long term. And I'm not a politician, and I guess I don't understand how all the cogs work, but there is some simple math that doesn't make sense. And what is that explosion point? Recently there's been this horrible situation in one of the cities where some children were killed, and some people started rioting about it, and I don't know enough about it really to comment, but I feel that that's just the pot boiling over. These people are right. It's not just about that very sad situation. It's about the bigger picture here of all of this stuff's been boiling. And I feel for maybe 10 or 15 years, people living in Britain have been saying, oh, another thing we've been hit with, another tax, another this, another that. And it's, look, I love my country. I love the country I was born in, and I've spent my whole life there, working. And I don't know, how many millions our companies put into the system, but you're right. When somebody like myself might need the help, it's not there. It doesn't exist. Going back to the COVID example, we had zero help. Zero. We looked at the government, no help. Turned to the bank that we'd put millions through, zero debt company, perfect credit rating. They called it a C-bills loan, but there was the bounce back, and then the higher level was called C-bills. Banks were just like not lending to anyone. They were like, no. They didn't care. They didn't care about the companies who had serviced them for years. I guess they had to do what they had to do, but that didn't help companies like us. Because we were a debt-free company and we managed our business and our cash flow very well, we did okay. Right, we got through. But there's so many that didn't. So.
That's great to hear, Kalvin. We're just going to talk today, understanding how you can grow your business with a growth mindset. So on the first topic that I wanted to discuss is understanding the growth barriers, because when we do business, we have misconceptions that, okay, as a person myself, I will know everything. But that's not true. I cannot know everything, because we are not made like this. And even if you think about AI and a lot of other things, technology, it has to be very specific. So if you are growing yourself to the field, you have to be very specific, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 niche things you can do, but you cannot do everything, and that will not work. So my first question to you would be, what are the most common growth barriers faced by the businesses today?
Most common growth barriers. So I would say that in its simplest form, a business is in 3 sections. You have marketing and advertising and branding, let's say, in section 1. Second is the deliverables, so he's delivering the product service, and the third part is the finances. So the people don't prospect and look for new clients enough. So when you're first new, you have nothing, you have no contacts, you have no clients, you work real hard. You work real hard to get clients. You do 20-hour days, you do it non-stop, and you start to get some clients and your business starts to do well. So you start to deliver your products or services.
Mm-hmm.
So the next problem then is that whilst you're delivering, you're not prospecting new clients. So you're not doing your sales, you're not doing your marketing. So you finish delivering for these clients and you haven't got a good enough pipeline. So you then go back to the beginning, you work very hard and you build up this pipeline, you deliver some clients and you have to deliver again. And then you just end up in this cycle. So that's a common problem. And when the business starts to make money, people start to spend it very quickly. They buy nice cars on finance, they go on nice holidays, they buy a bigger house. And it's okay to have those things if your business has the backup to go through some bad times. And, financially, so we get into the section 3 of what I just said, is you have to, cash is king. One of my mentors told me cash is king. Okay.
Yes.
And if you don't have cash, your business can always survive if you have cash in the bank. It can survive a COVID if you have cash in the bank. If you have nothing in the bank because you spent it all, then you and it won't survive. And I would say that the first thing to answer your question is you should always be prospecting. You should always be looking for new clients. You should always be looking to improve the quality of your clients and your leads. But the getting a lead is just the beginning. You have to take them through a sales pipeline through the different stages, and you have to be confident at closing and asking for money. You have to be confident in your pricing. You don't want to be the cheapest business in the room. That's the, you know, there's kind of two business models. There's sell it cheap and stack it high. So that's kind of like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So when it gets higher, it gets wobblier, and you don't have you're not charging enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is that you charge a reasonable amount. So I always say 75% of the market. So let's say your product is £1,000, or the products that you deliver, the highest end of the market is £1,000. I could charge them 750. But you'll find people in your marketplace charging £100. And if you pay cheap, you pay twice most of the time. So I would rather have a premium service or product at the absolute highest level in my sector, what I do, and I'd have less clients for more money. I can serve them better, I can spend more time with them, I can spend more time installing my product, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Get back to the question, mistakes, prospect. I need two things in my business: deliver and I prospect. Every single day, I'm looking for new clients. Even when the business is busy, I'm looking for new clients, Who else can I serve?
I totally agree with you, Kalvin, because I have seen when it comes for, it's one person shop, right? Specifically one person show, I would say. When people start SMEs, they think that they will earn the money and then they will invest it again to do more work. I think that's a misconception. Some people, they might do work like that way, but if you're a business, you need to think about investment, isn't it? First, like, okay, how much you wanted to invest, how much you wanted to earn. So if you're thinking to do a business, excuse me, then you should have some investment, maybe a year, 2 years,
Yes.
for paying you salary. Sometimes most people, they do that, okay, I'm going to be working free. Yeah. So your salary is minus already. So all the efforts you're putting in business, that is not counted. And at the end, you cannot do well because you cannot hire the things you say that, okay, you need to think for prospecting, you need to think for marketing, you need to think for all other things. And
Yeah.
if you do not combine them together, at the end, your growth will be minimal. Like, okay, maybe you will have one client and you finish that clients and invest that money. And then again, you are in a problem. So I'm doing my software development marketing company last 5 years. I'm still investing. Yeah. Because some people, they have misconception that they will start the business today and tomorrow they will start earning money. That is not right most of the time based on the business, isn't it? So in that scenario, how do you deal with a strong client like this kind of motivation? How do you convince them, okay, if you're doing business, you need a plan, strategy, and you need to think all of those things. How you achieve your success by convincing them?
So my pipeline is paid advertising of some description. Somebody comes in, directly leaves their details or through a funnel, sales funnel, and then they end up in my CRM system. We then prospect those people. So we like WhatsApp, so we use WhatsApp Messenger to start to talk to them. And then somebody from the tele-sales team will phone them and have a discussion, and we'll ask them some simple questions. Now, they're an inbound lead, so they are, look, what's the biggest challenge in your business? Is this your first business? What kind of turnover are you doing? What kind of turnover do you desire? And how much money are you looking to invest to get this right? Those are kind of the basics of kind of our qualifying questions. Now, at that point, we already know what their problems are because they've told us. At that point, my telesales team will book a Zoom call with me. So I already have an idea of what's going on, but I kind of go over it again. So we do an introduction. I ask them about their business, what's going on. I know there's a problem because they wouldn't be speaking to me, okay, because that's what I'm there for. And then the key thing, one of my mentors once, and I say this quite often, is best bit of advice I was given was shut up and listen. What he meant was, you don't need to, if you're networking, you don't need to jabber about your business. You need to communicate and have a conversation. So I always ask the prospective client to tell me everything about the business, everything they want to know, and I'll ask them some questions. And I'll then tell them a bit about myself, something I feel is relevant with my experience, so that they can understand that I'm qualified in terms of experience to help them with this particular problem. So I'll tell them a story. And we go through the process, and I don't really like hard, aggressive sales. So sorry to the car salesman out there, but everybody hates a car salesman, right? Most people in the UK, if you've part exchanged a car, you've always walked out with you might have walked out of a new car, but you felt like you've had a bad deal. And look, they're not all like that. There's some great car salesmen out there, but you can't be aggressive where your client walks away when they've paid you some money and they feel like they've got a bad deal. That's not how business should be. They should be confident. So I use some sales language and some provoking thoughts. For example, I might say something like, okay, so I asked them the price of their product. There was a gentleman I was speaking to recently, and if we put the work in place, we're going to grow his turnover from 200,000 dirhams in Dubai to 1.5 million dirhams. So, my price was very low in compared to what he was going to make. So I said, do you agree that investment with me is exactly that? It's an investment, right? You're not spending money or wasting it, because this is going to teach you to earn 1.5 million dirhams a turnover a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to reverse it and talk in their language. I don't believe that we spend any money in business. We don't purchase anything. We invest. We invest in softwares, in AI tools, in training, in support, in our team training. And I kind of, when you say convince, I don't really want to convince anyone. I want them to convince themselves that this is a good conversation. So here's one tip that works really, really well is, at the end of the conversation, I say, please tell me every single reason that you should not work with me. And it just makes them think a little bit to go, well, and they start coming up with the excuses and the reasons why it's a bad idea. And then I can objection handle and say, okay, I understand that, but here's the answer. And at the end of the conversation, I very rarely have a real objection. It's just a case of, do they want to do it or not? And it's literally the language that I use. So it has to be very clear. And again, one of my other mentors said to me, it's a long sale and a short close when you're dealing with somebody. There should be no conversation left to have when you're talking to a prospect and somebody that you're trying to sell to. And look, sales is not just sales. Sales should be about offering somebody the best service, something that absolutely serves them. Whether that's a car, whether that's a service like what I do, whether it's going to a doctor because you're ill or anything like that, there's a service and they should walk away satisfied, whether they've paid for it or, it's a free service or whatever. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Kalvin. Yes, when we work with individual clients, sometimes if you don't start working with them, it's hard to understand their motivation, what they wanted to achieve, and how they are utilizing your knowledge to grow their business. Because when we work individual companies, you can see that some of the times they don't agree with you. Sometimes they will say good things, sometimes they will say bad things. So it's just like part of the development cycle, because when you growing some companies, you will have ups and downs, because some of the tactics that you would do that might not work, but it doesn't mean that the next tactics you're going to be working with them that will fail. So I have seen clients like, okay, when you're working, they don't understand that it's a growing mindset and it's a growing path, and they should do it gradually. That okay, they some people, they want just like a magic wand, the next day they want the success, isn't it? But success is not like magic wands. You have to work hard with yourself, with your strategist, with your employee, with your culture to make them happen. like the right marriage, I would say, and you will get
Yes.
results. On my next conversation, before I jump into conversation, I just wanted to ask our audience, if you wanted to ask us question, please feel free to ask us through the comment box, and we will answer your questions. And today I have Kalvin Morris from the Obsessed to Success, and I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from Time Research and Innovation and 𝗬𝗍 Marketing. So my next question is developing a personalized roadmap for growth. So how do you create a tailored growth plans that address businesses' unique challenges?
So I work one-to-one with my clients for a reason. So in the program that I was in, incredible mentors and coaches in there, and it grew and grew very, very fast. And we had a lot of people in the room. And now they had a unique ability to be able to train a large number of people, but you cannot get away from the value of one-to-one coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when I'm talking to a prospective new client, what I say is that we start our sessions with what I call a brain dump session. So I want to know about you, your personal life, your income level to live at a good rate and live the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, once I understand you personally, I can then look at the business and I do what's called a reverse engineered roadmap or a reverse engineered
Mm-hmm.
business plan. And what I do is we then look at the business and the products and the net profits. And now I know, depending on where you live, your tax requirements, we now know how much money the business needs to earn to give you that life, to give you that real dream of a life.
Mm-hmm.
Once we do that, we can reverse that to the amount of sales or products or services that you need to sell. And that gives us our 12-month roadmap. So something super valuable that I learned over the years was that I've seen so many businesses fail because they create this amazing, innovative product or service, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't look if the market needs it. So
Mm-hmm.
they create these amazing things, but it's not required or it's already been done and they didn't realize. So by reverse engineering the roadmap or the business plan, we do it from requirement and work it back to the business. We don't create the product and hope somebody will buy it. One of the businesses that I ran was a software company. We launched a piece of software, put a whole team in place. We were trying to sell it. And actually, it was before the software boom and we were too early to the marketplace. Now, if we'd have done the research and just simply phoned the potential, in that case, it was the care homes, phoned all the care homes before we even started developing, probably could have saved myself nearly £1 million.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do that. I got excited about software and tech and just went down a rabbit hole and created this huge piece of software, and the marketplace wasn't ready for it. So you know the roadmap question is about reverse engineering, and if somebody wants to do that in their business, that's absolutely what they should do. Is
Mm-hmm.
you know what's living the dream? How does that look? Reverse engineer it from there.
Thank you, Kalvin. And I think to all the audience, you are enjoying our talk. It will be recorded, and if you wanted to recap this session, you can have that on our social media. You can also contact Kalvin directly through LinkedIn and all other social media. And as well as if you have any question, you can ask us through the comment box. So we have some questions, but we're going to jump into the question a little bit later. Before I jump into other questions, I just wanted to ask you, because you are in Dubai now, so we might have some viewers. They are thinking to relocate, and they are thinking, okay, which places they would go. So, if you compare the UK and Dubai, how do you recommend them to shift there, or is there any possibility that, okay, if they are thinking to relocate to Dubai, they can contact you directly?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've realized with helping businesses here is that there is a huge shift of people moving here. So the UAE government have the desire by 2040 to have the population of Dubai at 10 million people.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, it's, I believe, in the region of 3.5 to 4 million. So it's over double population in 14 years, 15 years, which is nowhere has ever done that. That's unprecedented. It's never happened. Now, if you look at the sheer amount of construction going on, they are preparing for that. Now, we talked a little bit earlier, 9,500 to 10,000 millionaires are going to leave the UK alone, and the initial attraction to Dubai is no income tax, which is true. Okay, but I said earlier, it's not just cocktails and palm trees, right? There's a lot to consider. So first of all, I am helping some businesses now to relocate who are approaching me. So that absolutely, I can help people do that. And if I just gave people, let's say, 5 key points to consider, is that the cost to relocate can be quite significant. I sold everything I've ever bought, apart from a house, and then we moved to Dubai and then rebought everything we need. So cars, microwaves, you know, and it's surprising all of these things that you use day to day, dishwashers, fridges, how much money that adds up to. Because of course you sell stuff at a second hand price and you maybe rebuy at a new price again. And it's a lot to start your life again, right? So there is a big financial cost to that. The second point is that when you set up a business in Dubai, in the UK, you can register a UK limited company on Companies House in about 10 minutes, and it's £16, I think it is. It doesn't work like that here. So there's no income tax, but there is quite a hefty price to set up a company. So it can be, without going into too much detail, there's free zones, which are tax-free zones, and mainland companies. And the cheapest a company is in sterling is in the region of £6,000 to £8,000 to set it up. And that can go up to £20,000. And then you have to renew that every year. So I just renewed my company for the year and it cost £6,000. So there is a tax, but if you can get your business to a point where it's a big earner, then it absolutely makes sense. So it's the relocation cost, everything you need to live, including cars and things, then the company setup. With respect to everybody that's here, it is very much an entrepreneur's world, not a employee's world. Now you can come here and get a job, but there isn't really a minimum wage here. So you've got, and of course, you know, the respect for everybody around the world, but there's a lot of Indian and Pakistani people in particular who have maybe come from a less advantaged background, and they will work a 60-hour week and get paid £400 a month for it. So there's a lot of jobs that you would think in the UK are quite highly paid, and here they're not. So I'm in a lot of Facebook groups with British people. There's various different Facebook groups with thousands of people, and every day I see people who have moved here with no plan, and they very quickly go again. And speaking to people who have been here 10, 15 years, the bit of advice is get through the first year, have enough money to live for a year or two, and you can set yourself up for life. Now, there is zero income tax. There's a corporation tax they just introduced, which is 9% compared to the 25% in the UK. The 25% corporation tax in the UK is from pound number one. You can profit about £800,000 sterling here before you start paying corporation tax.
Okay.
So there's a huge difference in So this is where the pendulum swings, right? You've got pros and cons. So income tax 0 versus up to 40, going up towards 50% in the UK, depending on your earning level. VAT is 5% here. You have £85,000 turnover in the UK before you have to do VAT. If it's 375,000 dirhams, it's roughly the same, but it's only 5% VAT here. So corporation tax 25% in the UK, 9% after a huge amount of money here. Fuel here for your car is 70 pence a litre instead of £1.50, or, you know, fluctuating between £1.20, £1.50. But food here is super expensive, very expensive, in the supermarket and to eat out. So there's these pros and cons, and really, to be honest, it comes down to your income level. If you're working a regular 9 to 5 on a regular wage, this is not really the right place to come unless you're going to start a business and take an opportunity, which is go for it, you know, and I respect everybody. The other things to consider that are expensive compared to the UK is you have to have private medical insurance. And and then children's schooling is 100% private. So depending on how many children you have, then that can become expensive quickly. So that's the core, honest truth from my experience of coming. And look, if you can tick the boxes in the right areas, then have a conversation with me. And if you want to know more information, do that. But I would say do your research. It's a big thing to move to another country. What we decided to do was keep our UK house, rent it out, and we rent here. My mortgage is still being paid the same as it would if I was there, but I've got the flexibility at any point, if we chose to get on a plane, find somewhere to live, and move back in my house, and in the nicest way, kick the tenants out if we wanted to do that. So we've left that level of security there for a reason.
What about the linguistic differences? Because people might think that it's Arabic language, isn't it? So in relation with the linguistic barrier, how critical it is for you to work over there and do businesses over there?
So one of my weakest skills is learning a language. That's something it's never been my great skill set. I think that without it sounding disrespectful, people who were born in Britain haven't, maybe arrogance is too strong a word, but we have an expectancy that the world speaks English, and the world does speak English. So I don't know the statistics, but English people are the worst at speaking another language in numbers compared to the rest of the world. And it's very English driven here. There's no barrier at all. Everybody speaks English or some level of English. Now, of course, if you want to work within government, or you want to do contracts, or maybe you want to grow into the Saudi market, which is a big talking point here, then of course, if you can learn to speak Arabic, then you're going to be winning massively. So I would say, depending on what your goals are, then that would be a huge thing to do. It's not something I've started doing, but of course it is something that's definitely on the radar to try to do and try to learn. There's, I think there's over 200 nationalities in Dubai. It's something in the region of 240 to 250 globally, I believe, nationalities that exist, and there's more than 200 here in Dubai. But 90% of the population, from the statistics I've been told, is expats from around the world. And then of the 90%, something like 60 or 70% are Indian. So there's a lot of British people here and Europeans, but not in comparison. But what you find, which is interesting, is that cultures hang around with cultures, or should I say nationalities hang around with nationalities. So the Indian people congregate together, the British people congregate together, the Americans congregate together. So you end up in circles of people from your homeland, let's say. But there's big opportunity. There's a really nice lady called Julie that I met that we're going to be doing some business together. And her business deals with intercultural training in business. She specifically deals with that challenge. And when I first met her, she actually came through as a prospect. And as soon as we started talking, I said to her, I'm not going to coach you and support your business. We're going to work together because you have something amazing here. So we've been talking about how we can do that and create a joint venture together. So,
thank you, Kalvin. We're just going to answer some of the questions from the audience. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's live webinar. And we have Kalvin Morris, and I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui. So the first question I have from Asama. Thank you, Asama, for sending this question to us. And she asked, why is mindset critical to business growth?
So I talk about mindset a lot, and the coaches that helped me to grow to the person that I am today talk a lot about mindset. And I feel it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. It's almost just like a buzzword, a common word now. And, there's been a huge growth in, let's say, mental health awareness of the average person, over the past few years, and recognition of things like stress and anxiety and panic attacks and those type of things. And I've I'm somebody that's had that sort of thing in my life, and through stress, and it's not something I've ever really shouted about. But having the right mindset, this is my definition of mindset, is that my company's called Obsessed for a reason, because I refuse to fail because of my mindset. I'm obsessed to success because of my mindset. So the way that I switch on, I have bad days like everybody else, and the way that I switch on is I wake up and I think about other people's situations who are worse off than me. I think I have a roof over my head, I have a nice place. It's not overly extravagant where we live. It's certainly not a $20 million villa on the Palm or something like that where we stay in Dubai. I've got a nice car, but I own it. It's not on finance. I don't owe anyone any money, and I earn reasonable money while I build up my most recent business. I've got a good wife, good kids, and good health. So my mindset switches back to those things, to be grateful for what I have, not ungrateful for what I don't have. Now, in business, you will have amazing times, you will have tough times, you may even lose a business, you may go bankrupt and lose everything. But there's a certain point, wherever you are in your journey, even if you're an employee and you think, I want a business and I can't create one because I don't have any money, that's not true. You just have to figure out a way, and that's what mindset is. So don't get stuck here. Always take a bird's eye view, take a deep breath, and go at it again. As business owners, we're very easily led into thinking we have to do 20-hour days. And look, you will get places if you do 20-hour days, but you don't want to put yourself in a box and have a heart attack at a young age. So there is a balance here, right? So mindset to me is, and why it's important, is tomorrow is another day. Rome wasn't built in a day. Okay, we can only achieve what we can achieve. And sometimes I get to the point where I've spoken to every single prospect. There's nobody else to speak to grow. And I go, I want to do more today, but I can't. But what I do now is I go, that's okay. I've achieved what I can. Like this week, I haven't spoken to as many good prospects as I have in the previous weeks. I haven't closed as many deals as I have done previously. But that's okay, because I put 110% effort in. So the mindset is about, I live to see another day. Yeah.
Thank you, Kalvin.
Yeah.
That was really contributing to the audiences, and we had some other questions, but I think we're nearly end of our session. At the end of our session, we asked our speaker to maybe give some takeaways to the audiences. So from this conversation, few key takeaways for the audience to remember and practice.
Okay, so always just keep pushing forward is the first thing. I cannot change, and you cannot change anything up to yesterday. I cannot change everything I did in my life up to the beginning of this meeting and this interview, but I can change everything moving forward. Okay, I've worked a lot today, and I'm spending some evening time, which is normally time with my wife, but I will go and spend some time this evening with her, and we'll watch some Netflix, because that's my contribution to her. Okay, so always be driving forward, looking backwards. We all make mistakes. In business, mistakes don't exist as long as you learn from them, and even if they're financial mistakes. Live lean in your businesses in the early years. You don't need that big fat BMW, Mercedes, or Porsche. Okay, a cheap runaround car will still get you from A to B. You don't need the big house or the big holiday 6 times a year in the first few years. If you keep putting the money back in, it will return 50 times over in the future. Never stop prospecting, never stop looking for clients, never stop new ways of marketing, and invest more in marketing than anything else in your business. I would say that those are the absolute key fundamentals to business success.
Thank you, Kalvin. Thank you very much for joining today's live events. And I hope that we will do some more events in the future for people to contribute more and talk about business development. So you know that business development is not about word that, okay, if you are a person, you wanted to start your business, you need experience. Like you say, and on your profile, I can see that 23 years plus experiences. That matters because someone they are starting today or they have started 5 years ago, if they can borrow your brain, they are 23 years ahead than other people. Why? Because you have learned from your business and you have invested, and from there you have created your organization to support people. So that's why when I talk to people, I most of the time I tell them, if you do not understand technology, you need to get a brain of a technologist. If you do not understand business, you need to get a brain of a business person that they can aid you to grow. And similar for other sectors like marketing and all other things. So, Kevin, stay on the line. I'm going to say bye-bye to the audience, and then I will say you bye. And we will tailor something else in the future. And just stay on the line. I'm just going to say bye-bye to the audience. So thank you, everyone, for joining today's live webinar. I hope you have enjoyed today's live, and we have contributed what you are looking for. So I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from 𝗓𝗐 Marketing, Time Research and Innovation, and 𝗬𝗏divergent Business Consortium. You know that I have a few hats, and I intend to support people with business development, software developments, marketing, and so on. So please support and spread the word. I'm back again next Tuesday with 𝗬𝗏divergent Business Consortium. And you know that Tuesday I only discuss about neurodiversity, disability, and all other things related to business development for neurodivergent, disabled people, and less able people. So until then, stay tuned. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.